Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm here to tell you about the most Catholic game that I have ever played. Now, you might be thinking right off the bat that I'm going to say Xenolade Chronicles 3, because that has the infamous how babies were made scene, and the whole game just has an extremely pro-life message, which of course is the church's stance. It goes above and beyond to talk about how the normal way of the world is to get married and have kids and get old and really being supportive of the family. And for those of you who are not prudes, it also has a very pure and innocent mixed bath scene, which I know some diehard conservatives might say, how dare you do a mixed bath scene, but it's technically not against church teaching, and it doesn't feel sexual or anything like that, which is wild considering what Xenoblade Chronicles 2 did. But the reason why I'm not talking extensively about Xenoblade 3 in this video is because as a game, like actually holding the controller in my hands and doing actions, it doesn't feel Catholic at all. It feels like I'm just exploring these worlds, and since I really stink at the battles in this game, just putting the game on auto battle whenever possible and just hoping that I do good whenever the game forces me to do battles. But as far as a game where both the story and the gameplay complements the Catholic faith, I can't think of any other game that fulfills that need more than Life is Strange 2. Now, I will make a disclaimer that it has been a very long time since I have played Life is Strange 2, so I'm not going to be as lore accurate as most other people are. I like to make these videos unscripted, and I like to make it seem like I'm just speaking based on personal experience and my own personal feelings, so I hope the diehard Life is Strange fans don't say, how dare you not know that kid's name right off the bat. Like, okay, I'm gonna make some mistakes. The point here is to emphasize the game's Catholicism, not to be a lore dump or any of those things. There are plenty of other YouTubers that can do that. You can go watch those guys. So first off, what is Life is Strange 2, just in case you don't know? Basically, it's a walking simulator that allows you to make different choices of how you respond to the characters, how you examine the environment, but most importantly, what sets this game apart from the other Life is Strange games is that the main character that you control, for one, is a guy. I know, shocking, right? There's only one game in the entire franchise that has a male protagonist, and he doesn't actually have powers. That's another differentiation. All the female protagonists have these special powers that the gameplay itself allows you to use, but in this game, it's Sean's brother that has the powers. Sean's job is to, in essence, babysit him, because they're going on a road trip and their parents are not there, to avoid spoilers. And so Sean takes up the mantle of, I guess, kind of surrogate dad, and tells Daniel when he should be using his powers. And based on how you interact with Daniel and what choices you make and what you tell him to do and what not to do with his powers, Daniel actually develops sort of a mind of his own. And as a result of that, there are, as far as I know, 4 different endings that you can get. And while I don't want to delve into spoilers in this review, I will say that the 4 endings basically boil down to Sean tells Daniel what to do out of 2 choices, and Daniel listens, or because you're being a hypocrite, Daniel says, to heck with you, Sean, I'm going to do the other option. And based on which of those 4 outcomes happen, gives you 4 wildly different endings. Now, none of these endings have a particularly happy ending. There's a bittersweetness to each and every one of them, so it's hard to say which one is the definitive ending that the game wanted you to pick, but personally, I have gone and watched YouTube videos of what the other endings are, and I think the one that I got was what I would consider the best ending. And again, since I don't want to spoil what the ending is, I will just say that it's the one where Sean says, let us do this, and Daniel says yes. And I think most people would probably say that that's the morally sound option. Now, that alone is not exactly new to Life is Strange. Usually at the end of each game, you have a major decision that you have to make that has some elements of Catholic theology. Like in the first Life is Strange game, it's a matter of how many people are going to die as a result of your decision. In True Colors, it's how are you going to respond to the villain. In this game, It's more so of how are we going to approach this situation, and have I been a good enough role model to get Daniel to agree with me? But the other thing that makes me love Life is Strange 2 from a Catholic perspective is that the game often puts you in these sketchy situations that the Catholic Church would very much disapprove of. And you, more often than not, have the option to say no. You have the option to avoid just about every single scene that could involve either sex or something that's sexual in nature. You have the option to completely avoid having romance with any of the characters, especially considering the fact that Sean is a minor. I am very glad that the game gives you the option to make sure that Sean is waiting until he's age appropriate for that kind of activity. Now, admittedly, there is a scene where you are forced to steal if you do not have enough money, and admittedly, I do think that that's kind of silly that the game doesn't give the player any indication that that could happen. But then again, that could have also been intentional as the game's way of saying, hey, you know what? Sometimes when you're in a desperate situation, you have to resort to desperate measures. But I do appreciate how often the game allows you to say, no, you are going too far, and the game respects your choices in that regard. I especially love, and of course this is the case for every Life is Strange game. I don't know about Before the Storm. That's the only one I actually haven't played. But I do have reviews of all the other Life is Strange games on my channel that have been on the Switch, so there you go. Lots of catching up to do. But anyway, at the end of each chapter, or episode as they're called, you have a statistics screen that allows you to see how many people all over the world got certain outcomes. And so you can say, was I in the majority or was I in the minority? I remember in the first Life is Strange game, I was only in the 1% category for one of the decisions, and I felt so good because I was like, that's what the Catholic Church would have wanted me to do. In Life is Strange 2, there are actually quite a few characters. As far as my memory tells me, I think there's at least 3 characters whose lives can actually be spared if you make the right decisions. And looking back on those characters, again, don't want to give any spoilers, but I think because I thought to myself, what would the Catholic Church want me to do in these scenarios, that made it really easy to determine if this character can be spared or not. Now, there was one particular character where Catholic theology wasn't necessarily applied, I just used common sense, which of course you might not think is inherently a Catholic thing, but the Catholic Church teaches that the reason why we have, reason, is because we are made in the image and likeness of God, and therefore God is an intellectual and rational being, and we as humans are the only species on the entire earth that are capable of using that, because the animals were not created in God's image and likeness, and that is why they are incapable of reason. They rely 100% on instinct, and that is why the Catholic Church is kind of not a big fan of people that act based on their impulses or only their feelings. Now, that's not to say you should never act on your impulses or feelings. Jesus cried, for example, but there has to be a balance. There were plenty of times where Jesus was very emotional and very caring and considerate, but there were other times where he wasn't afraid to say, "You brood of vipers," to the people that were sinners, or to use Socratic reasoning when people just could not get basic concepts when they were supposed to be the experts of the law. So in that way, Life is Strange 2 encourages you to say, okay, let's think about what would be the most rational option here. And based on using my reasoning skills, not necessarily going by Catholic doctrines, will that end up resulting in someone's life spared? And in my case, yes. As I went through the game, every single time the game said this character could have died, I ended up sparing the character's life. Why? Because I used my morals and my theology to ascertain the situation and say, let's act based on how the Catholic Church would teach. Now, in my spoiler review, or the spoiler section of my Best Games 2023 video, I did mention that there was one chapter that has a lot of very explicit Catholic teachings, or Catholic symbolism, for lack of a better word. But because I don't want to break my spoiler-free rule for this review, I will just say go and watch the Best Games of 2023 video, and just watch the spoiler section if you're not afraid of having the game ruined for you. But I will say that the game does a good job of differentiating between what is a true Christian and what is a Christian by name. Because a lot of people claim that they're Christian and claim that they're Catholic, but if you scrutinize their actions based on what the church actually teaches, you'll find that they're more or less hypocrites, or what we call cafeteria Catholics, which means that they pick and choose what they want to believe, and we don't consider those people actually Catholic. And in this game, there are moments where there are characters that claim that they're religious, but Sean, who's not much of a religious person at all, says, "From the little bit that I do know about the Bible and the scriptures, you're a piece of work, because you preach this one thing, but your actions say otherwise." But there are practicing Christians elsewhere in the game, and he contrasts their behavior with another character's behavior. And they did not have to do that at all. They could have just gone with the whole atheistic messages thing that seems to be the case in all the other games, but in Life is Strange 2, they showed just enough restraint so that possibly the people that are skeptical about Catholicism could say, okay, I see the contrast between these two characters and how both of them claim to be Christians, but yet one character, Sean, is praising, and one character, Sean, is condemning, for lack of a better word. I don't think he's actually saying this person is evil, but he's definitely saying, you're a hypocrite, and these other people feel like actual Christians. So the game is basically saying, if you're gonna claim that you're a Christian, act on it. Do your research and actually follow along with church teachings. Don't just pick and choose what you want to believe. Really commit to the entire act of being a Christian. And so that thrill of being able to say my choices actually mattered and my theology was more or less a strategy guide to getting the best ending, saving everyone's lives, and just making sure that overall I felt satisfied with just about every single outcome that I got, so that I could proudly say, wow, the Bible, the Catechism, and sacred tradition all worked together to make the game more enjoyable. And if you can think of an actual video game where the game itself allows you to live out your Catholicism like that, please let me know, because otherwise, yes, there are other games I've played that have Catholic messages, and in the case of Xenolade Chronicles 3, much stronger Catholic theology, but to actually feel like your faith matters in terms of which buttons you push on the controller, no other game has surpassed Life is Strange 2. I hope it does, because I would love to see more good Catholic representation in games. I know that there have been attempts in the past to make Christian video games, and while I haven't played most of them, from what I've seen and heard, they sound terrible. And they make out Jesus as more of a superhero rather than what he was actually trying to be. And I'm hoping that someday there comes a developer who has actual reverence for the source material and makes a game that does not feel like a mockery of it, but is actually cool and fun to play. And if one of those developers exists, I hope he or she will reach out to me, and if it's on the Switch, maybe I'll even review it. Consider that a challenge for all of you aspiring game developers out there. Make a game that is both fun and it has Catholic theology in it, and maybe even make it overtly Catholic, and see if I will actually like it. You may even end up having the honor of being the very first game on my top 10 list that is explicitly Catholic. So with that, thank you very much for watching, my friends. Please let me know down in the comments if you have any experiences in gaming where the Catholic faith has helped you to be able to make good decisions. And also just what do you think about Life is Strange in general? I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!